Hello and welcome to this third video in the series on NCLDR. In this video we'll look at creating custom cultures using NCLDR. There are two approaches to creating custom cultures. The first is to use NCLDR Explorer, which is what we'll do in this video. The second is to just write some code. This simple process starts with the NCLDR Custom Culture class. It has a method called create NCLDR culture and region info builder. We call that to create a standard .NET culture and region info builder, which is the class which was introduced in .NET 2.0, which allows us to create custom cultures. We simply call the register method and it creates the custom culture on the current machine. Let's get started with NCLDR Explorer. So I'm going to open a command prompt. I'm going to open it as an administrator, so I'm going to run this as administrator. In order to create custom cultures you need administrator rights. So let's change to the NCLDR directory that I created in the previous video. And in this folder we have a utility called NCLDR Explorer. Let's change to the bin debug folder and run NCLDR Explorer. We'll start by giving it the path to our data file and loading the data. Now if we start by looking at the .NET comparison page, we can see the total number of cultures on this machine, which is running on Windows 8 using the .NET Framework 4.5, is 378 .NET cultures. NCLDR has a total of 656 cultures. We're going to add some of those cultures to the .NET Framework. So let's go to the Custom Cultures tab, and the main point that we can see on this screen here is there's a list box of cultures which are known to NCLDR. If I click on the one at the top, we can see in this section currently selected culture, it displays the English name and the native name of the currently selected culture. And as I scroll down you can see the names of the different cultures. So one approach to creating custom cultures is to select a culture that you want to create and then click on this button down here which says register selected custom cultures on this machine, and you check off as many as you like, then click on the button and off we go. In fact, that's not the approach that I'm going to take. The approach that I'm going to take is to add all of the custom cultures that NCLDR provides. Now I could click on this button over here which says check all of the new cultures. If you look down the list in the list box, then you can see that some cultures have an asterisk next to them, like AF here, and some do not. The ones with an asterisk simply mean that they exist both in NCLDR and in .NET. You can create custom cultures for these cultures. There really wouldn't be any point because the .NET Framework already has them. But if you do, you need to provide a custom culture prefix so that they have a different name to those in the .NET Framework. So I've selected all of the new cultures, the ones which the .NET Framework does not know anything about, and at this point I could click on the Register Selected Custom Cultures on this machine button. In fact, that's not the approach that I'm going to take. I'm going to do this in two halves, and I'll explain why in a moment. First, what I'm going to do is to click on the Check All New Neutral Cultures button. That selects all of the cultures which are new to the .NET Framework and which are neutral. To register these, I click on the Register Selected Custom Cultures on this machine button, and it says register 100, that's the number which are selected, custom cultures. I'll say yes, and we can see in the progress box all the cultures being registered. Now I'm going to close down NCLDR Explorer and start it up again. The custom cultures aren't immediately recognizable by this process until it has been started. So let me load up the data file again and take a look at the .NET comparison page. you can now see that the .NET Framework has 478 cultures. The 378 that it had, plus the 100 that we've just added. Now I'm going to return to the Custom Cultures tab and check all new non-neutral cultures. If I click on the button again now, it says register 270 custom cultures, and I'll say yes, and off it goes and registers those cultures. Now I've deliberately done this in two phases. The first phase was to register the neutral cultures, and the second phase was to register the non-neutral cultures. The reason why I've done this is to ensure that the fallback, or the parentage of the cultures, is correct. In order for a custom culture to be created where it has a parent of a neutral culture, the neutral culture has to already exist first. If I didn't do this in a two-stage process, it would still work and I could create all the custom cultures in one go, but their parent of every single culture would be the invariant culture, and we don't want that. We want the parent of, for example, AADJ to be AA, and AA has to exist before that can happen. Okay, so I'm complete now. I have created 370 new custom cultures on this machine. They're visible in the .NET Framework. They're also visible in Windows itself. Let me close this down and take a look at the custom cultures. There are two ways to look at cultures in Windows. The first way is to start up the control panel, and in Windows 8 select the region control panel applet. In previous versions of Windows, it's called the Regional Language Options dialog. So if I drop down this list here, we can see there are lots of cultures in here. Many of them have an asterisk against them. An asterisk means that it is a custom culture, and there is one of the ones that we just added, the AFAR in Djibouti. Let me select that one, and we can see that clearly it has a different month name and a different day of the week up here. And we can look through the different settings and we can see that there's a different currency and different time formats, different date formats, and so on. This process is fine. It's a little bit slow to look through them one by one because you need to select every single one, and it doesn't include all of the data. So whereas it's built into the Windows operating system, it's not the fastest and most efficient way of looking at cultures. What we're going to do is use one of the utilities which comes with NCLDR. There's a utility which is not bound to NCLDR in any way other than that it just is included with the source code, called Culture Viewer. If I start this up, this is simply a way of viewing all of the cultures on one machine. Now, this is defaulting to looking at all of the cultures on this machine. What I want to look at is just the ones that I've created. If I click on this button here, Custom Cultures, it shows me all the custom cultures on this machine. As I didn't have any before I started this process, this is just the ones that I've created from NCLDR. And as I scroll through this list, you can see the culture name changing at the top of the screen. If you look at the parents box, you can also see that AFAR in Ethiopia has a parent of AFAR, which has a parent of the invariant culture. The benefit of doing the two-stage process that we did a moment ago was that our parent is correct. We should have a parent of AFAR, not just a direct parent of the invariant culture. As I scroll through the data, you can see the day names change, the month names change, the date and time formats are changing, and I could select the numbers tab here, and we can see that clearly the Arabic cultures have Arabic digits, and if I click on the currency tab, we get to see the different currencies of the different cultures: Burmese, Catalan, Cherokee, etc., etc. Okay, so that's all of the cultures created now. It does rather beg the question, if we're going to create these cultures, we might also want to remove these cultures. So let me go back to NCLDR Explorer. Let's load up the data file and select the Custom Cultures tab. A simple way to unregister one custom culture is to type in the name of the custom culture here and click on Unregister Culture. That will work fine. It's incredibly laborious if what you've done is just create 370 custom cultures on a machine and you want to unregister all of them. The simplest way to unregister all of them is to click on the Unregister All button. As I click on this button, it says Unregister All Custom Cultures, and I say yes. You'll notice that a little box pops up and it starts unregistering all 370 custom cultures, and we get this message saying a separate process has been started, which it has, and now that's complete, and the custom cultures have now gone. If I click on the .NET comparison here, we can see that we are back to the original 378 cultures on this machine. So that's how we create custom cultures from NCLDR. Let's take a look at some of the pros and cons of this process. Starting with the pros, custom cultures are first-class citizens. That means that they are available to .NET applications. They're also available to Windows applications, so anything that runs on the machine for which the custom culture has been created. Custom cultures are very fast. They outperform pretty much any other solution which would be handwritten in code. It also means that having created those custom cultures, if that was your goal, then you no longer need CLDR or NCLDR. However, there are some cons to this process. First is, as we've seen, to create a custom culture or register a custom culture, you need administrator privileges. That would probably be okay on your development machine, but you would need administrator privileges when you move the custom cultures to your target machine, so that may or may not be acceptable. Also bear in mind that custom cultures can only support a certain number of calendar types. Even though the .NET framework has more calendar types, and CLDR has more calendar types than the .NET framework, you can only create custom cultures which use these fixed calendar types. Also note that custom cultures always use a Gregorian calendar. Even if there are other calendars available, a Thai calendar, they start by using a Gregorian calendar only. It's also not possible to create new compare info or text info classes. So if we want to change the sort algorithm of a particular culture for which CLDR has data, there's no way to do that because we cannot create compare info and text info classes in the .NET framework. The culture info display name property displays a name for a culture according to the current culture. However, for a custom culture, it always displays the native name. So if we use display name and the current culture is English, it won't display the English name for a custom culture. It displays the native name only. And there's nothing you can do about that. Also bear in mind CLDR does not have data for certain properties that the .NET framework requires, so what NCLDR does is it just creates some default values. CLDR's handling of genitive month names uses a process which doesn't directly map onto the .NET framework's use of genitive month names, so the genitive month names which are created aren't genitive, they are regular wide month names. And also bear in mind that the .NET framework truncates AM and PM designators to 14 characters, and CLDR has AM and PM designators which are longer than 14 characters. So that concludes this video on custom cultures in NCLDR. You might like to look at some other videos available in this series. Thanks for watching.